Smart boards. Okay, I don't know if we have a lot of them in here at UNO, but a smart board is basically just an interactive dry erase board. And kids love it. I mean, you could put PowerPoints in here and kids will come in and move stuff around. You could classify the different cells and that kind of stuff. The idea behind technology is how do you get the kids involved? How do you get them wanting to do things? Okay? And smart boards are really cool for that. I mean, see, they're all happy doing stuff. iPods and podcasts, I'll talk a little bit about those later. And then finally cell phones, which of course to schools is the devil. But if used correctly, cell phones can be a really cool tool. It's, you know, problem is that it does cause a lot of distraction. Does it really make a difference? Of course, the key to successful integration is how the teachers use it. If used successfully, technology improves education by providing better tools for research, simulations that wouldn't be possible without them. I mean, you don't want kids actually dissecting things anymore. They do that virtually. And it's cheaper because they can dissect the same frog over and over again. You know, some of these innovations are even free, like Google Docs and Skype are things I've used in my classrooms to get kids to collaborate together. The idea is to encourage higher order thinking by letting the kids create their own relevance to your lesson. Okay? Reviewing their notes in their own words. Teachers have started to use wikis and blogs to do that. They've set up a blog and they'll say, okay, now after school here, put in, you know, 5 or 6, 2 or 3 sentences about what you thought was the most important thing about today's lesson. Put that on the blog. And what that does is it forces the kid to review the whole lesson, process it, synthesize what's important to them, because every kid in here every person in here might have a different idea of what was important to them, and put it on a single blog, single collaborative thing. It's kind of like our note pages that Dr. Diamond lets us do. You know, by doing that, he's tricking us into actually reviewing everything again and figuring out what you feel is important enough to put on that sheet. Okay? Make videos instead of papers, PowerPoints instead of posters. Again, that is a teacher being willing to allow things. I've had students that for one reason or another they don't have a good grasp of the language. They read very slowly. So instead of doing papers, they've said, "Can I just do PowerPoint instead?" And I'll say, "Sure, as long as you hit all the research. You know, if you want to do that. If you want to do a video in Windows Movie Maker and you're going to present it to the class, that's fine." You know, the idea is teachers have to be willing to look at not so much what you turn in, but what are you learning in the process of doing it. Okay? Are you getting what they are? Is the student getting what you want them to learn instead of just, you know, turn in something? All right? Using podcasts to encourage students to read. I've done that in my own classes. You know, I'll fool them to think, hey, let's make a podcast. You read these 3 pages, you read the next 3, you read the next 3, and we'll put them on this podcast, and we're going to make an audio book. And the kid, you know, and we'll give it away, right? And they're reading. So, you know, and they don't even realize what they're doing. Allow students to text, which encourages writing, if done properly. You know, I've said to some, hey, you could text 1 sentence to somebody if your grammar is right. You know, and they're like, oh, I can use my phone, great. You know, it's like crack to them. Also, the process of creating these things forces them to process, summarize, prioritize. I've already said that. Allowing students to create their own education and take instant ownership. How does this relate to economics? Okay, the reasons to innovate is flexibility of the administration, network effect of a distributed system. Okay, you can do attendance grades, you can deliver lessons better, more variety in course offerings because you can have distance learning. A collaborative district with more than one school can have one class that everybody is a part of, rather than having that class 18 times. There was a government mandate, the National Core Curriculum. I saw that. A National Core Curriculum in public schools says that you must include 21st century skills. Okay, technology must be included across the curriculum to keep up with your basic certification. What are the obstacles? Financing. Technology is very expensive. for private schools, which I thought would be the quickest to innovate, right? I thought, okay, these guys, they have the tools because they can use it as an advertising advantage. They can increase, they have the ability to increase their tuition to cover that expense. But if you look at it, the reality is the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act, also called the stimulus package, has certain funds that must be used in public education for technology integration. It must be used for that. And the No Child Left Behind Act, another great piece of legislation, part of that, the E2T2 program, has 5 years of competitive grants for schools to integrate technology. Then there's also the opportunity cost. According to the book, and this is where I need the light, according to the book, by the year 2019, it kind of sloops up here, but by the year 2019, schools will be 50% computer-based in their course offerings. And after that, it sort of flattens out, but using the 50% curve, if you're not part of that, you're behind. Okay? The other obstacle and biggest obstacle is teacher resistance. In 1969, a guy named Fuller created something called the concerns-based adoption model to new innovative practices. He broke it down into 7 traits: awareness, informational, personal, management, consequence of collaboration, and refocusing. And what they did was they studied a lot of new teachers, and based on those 7 traits, they found a lot of resistance, okay, to bringing in new innovations. But they learned that as they trained the teachers and made them more willing, once they were more familiar with the innovations, they were more willing to bring it in, especially after they could show them the benefits to how the kids were actually learning. Okay, so the conclusion was, you know, the schools have made a huge change over the past 100 years, mostly in the functions of what they're being asked to do. Technology is making it easier. Technology is just a tool. This is probably the biggest thing to take from this. It's the realization that technology is only a sophisticated tool. It is the teachers and the students' responsibility to participate in the new learning style. Teachers need to be flexible. Teachers need to allow the students to have their own ownership in their education. And then finally, this is what I'll close with. This is like a really cool commercial.
BACCALAUREATE, baccalaureate.
Correct.
Since this competition has been continuing for 48 hours and we have yet to eliminate anyone, it is the decision of this board to declare all 20 contestants winners. You have all competed admirably.
Admirably. ADMIRABLY.
So, are there any questions?